better because we're the largest single site employer in Oklahoma. So anyways, last time I talked about resume writing, and I talked about federal government resume writing, and I talked about private sector resume writing. And then today I'm going to talk about what me and other senior leaders at Tinker are looking for when we're hiring people who want to come work for the government. And this is not just the Air Force, but across all DoD agencies and across all kinds of different federal agencies that are outside the Department of Defense, which could be like Department of Interior or Department of Education. So I'm going to talk about just kind of what we're looking for in the people that we're bringing up through the workforce to come in and be the next leaders of tomorrow. So I apologize. I am going to the softball game, so I look like a bum after this, and I didn't want to get too hot out there. So I normally dress a little bit better for these kind of things and at work. And I go to work 2 days a week in the office, so that's pretty nice. And I work from home the rest of the time. So since you didn't hear most of my last time, I'll talk a little bit about Tinker and who we are. We have over 31,000 employees at Tinker Air Force Base, and that's consuming of military and civil service employees. There are different kinds of civil service employees out at Tinker. Those are ones that are appropriated by Congress and through taxpayers like you. And then there's some that are not appropriated who work out at Tinker, like if you're familiar with like the commissaries, where they get, groceries and the BX and stuff like that. They get their pay based off of their cells. So they're not appropriated by taxpayer dollars. So we've got military appropriated employees and not appropriated.
That's my email.
Oh. So we've got the Navy out there, so Anchor on land out at Tinker. They fly an aircraft out there. You've probably seen it. The TACAMO is called Take Charge and Move Out. They do a lot of secret squirrel shit that they're overseeing and watching our skies and making sure we stay safe. We've got Defense Logistics Agency. We consider them the Amazon of the government because they just get our parts and everything where we need them to go. We've got DISA, who is the one that's going out there and doing all of our background investigations to make sure we aren't murderers and anything else to let us in on base and do our job, and of course the Air Force. So we have a 4.83 economic impact to Oklahoma, and recently I just talked to the state of Oklahoma used to be the Aeronautics Commission, but now they're Oklahoma's Department of Aviation and something, I don't know what they're called now, because the state was not including aviation into the economic impact studies, and it was mostly oil and gas. So I raised a fit and said, we're the single largest employer. Aviation is number 2 in our industry in Oklahoma. You need to get that into the study. So they're working right now to get that into the study to make sure that aviation is well known in Oklahoma and how we are a benefit to our economy. We are expanding. I don't know if you've ever been to Tinker or near Tinker, but we're expanding across Douglas on the east side. There is a portion of Tinker where we call it the Hill, where you go over there and there's a lot of personnel stuff over there, but they're expanding and going to be doing some of the new bomber that's coming out. And then they're going to be expanding KC-46 operations, which is the new tanker, which is a flying gas tank, if you've ever heard of that. This is the Air Force mission. I said this last time when I was in my last position, when I was doing all the hiring for my organization. I was looking for people who, wanted to be out there, but this one guy went over and above and knew the entire Air Force mission and knew every single aircraft that we had at Tinker. So I hired him immediately because I felt like if he knew that much about the ins and outs of what we do out there, he really cared about what we do out there. So, and I try to live by this every day. I don't wear a uniform, but I did take an oath and swore that I would defend, the Air Force and the mission and our principles that we live by. So if you do get on with the government, you will have to take an oath. There were some pranks that we had whenever you come into the government where we have like a fake collar sometimes for the new interns. And we have them stand on a chair so that they can be seen across the organization and then do their oath over the phone. And it was completely not even real, but we videoed it, and it's kind of indoctrination to all the interns that come in. But we have a lot of fun where we work. I came back to work from Chicago last week to my entire office filled with balloons. So
Aww.
yeah, like all the way to the top. And it's kind of funny because all the engineers that work for me, as well as all the other engineers in the organization, they felt like over the weekend the air would reduce in the balloons, so they had to get it higher than my office wall so that I couldn't see it as I'm coming in to my office. So very strategic thought process and lack of work that day whenever they came in and did this. So, and then they got a picture of my boss in her office, obviously not caring about the situation and not backing me at all, and making sure that they were working that day. So my biography in a nutshell is I've been working for the government for 17 years. I started in right out of college through the Palace Acquire program, which I talked about last time. It's a great program for those who are about to graduate from a 4-year degree. And I was placed into Peterson Air Force Base in Colorado. And then I rotated through my training, different locations to include like Utah. I worked at NASA. I worked in Los Angeles Air Force Base, and then ultimately came back to Oklahoma to help raise my niece and nephew. And then from there, I moved to Thailand to work at the embassy, and Turkey to work at the embassies there. And then from the last 10 years or so, I've been doing a lot more aviation type stuff, and training and developing interns and new employees to the government. So that's kind of what I've been doing the last 17 years. I decided to go get my doctorate at OSU because I wanted to teach. And I've been teaching a little off and on at Oklahoma State since I graduated. And it's okay. It's I prefer the smaller schools to teach in, because I feel like some of the larger universities kind of push their students through to graduation and they feel like they aren't learning anything. And so I really like the smaller settings where I can have one-on-one conversations with the students. So right now I'm looking at possibly going to ECU or something like that instead. Let's see here. Right now, I'm the chief for foreign military sales, and basically that means that any countries who have any of our aircraft or weapon systems in the government that they use, my team supports them in engineering or technical assistance and stuff like that. So I have different team members assigned to different countries like France or Turkey or Chile, and we have I have an amazing group of team members who are, we call ourselves the Chick-fil-A of foreign military sales, because I feel like we go over and above and beyond, because some of these countries are not easy to deal with. We have some countries who are not very women friendly, so we have to adjust how we interact with them. But at the end of the day, they pay our salary and we provide them the support that they need in order to keep their aircraft or their weapon system safe. So, live in Seminole for 5 years now. I don't know if anybody's familiar with like the Varnum area, but bought a farm over there, the Varnum Game Preserve, what it used to be called, and been working on that and getting the house remodeled and being a farmer for the first time ever. So, and then I run the Seminole County Ducks Unlimited chapter. So that's kind of what I do outside of work every day, and I love it. And lastly is my goal, and as Jana knows, I'm trying to grow the aviation community. So I've been working to try to get an aviation degree here at Seminole State. I've not had much success. I'm still fighting that fight, because I feel like I said, #2 industry in Oklahoma, and we keep growing. So if there's any interest, if you know anybody, any interest for aviation, please talk to anybody and everybody here at this school so that we can get maybe an associate's degree in aviation going. So I've already talked about a little bit about Tinker, but one of the things I really want to emphasize is that we really have kind of two sets of people out at Tinker. You've got, they call the blue collar workers, the ones who are out there turning wrenches on the aircraft. They're actually fixing the planes. They're actually doing all the work that I don't know how to do. So they are the core of what keeps Tinker running. So we couldn't fly our planes or do anything without that expertise that they have. They go to Gordon Cooper and they go get those certifications or Embry-Riddle or whatever, and they're out there fixing everything for us so we can fly. And then there's the kind of the white collar side, is the business side. So that's what I'm on. And I have no idea about how to turn wrenches or anything like that, but I have a great team who has that experience, who helps me out when I'm in meetings and I don't know anything about a fan blade or a wing tip or anything like that, and they do. So that's why it's important to have kind of those people in your corner and to hire those people because they're the experts on that weapon system, and we need everybody in order to support the mission. So I don't know if anybody knows this, but Air Force One is actually managed out of Tinker. It's part of the VIP organization that we have out there. And so we have a lot of VIP aircraft that we manage out of there, to include like Secretary of Defense and all the ambassador aircraft too is sustained there. So it's pretty cool, as well as all the other different aircraft. Any questions on this? Any aircraft questions or nerd questions you got for me? Yeah.
Has there ever been an instance where a cyber attack was happening while the plane was flying?
I wouldn't know that. I'm sure there are. We probably wouldn't know that. They would probably say, like we get in the news, there was a exercise that occurred, and that's probably all we would get. If we would only know if it actually happened to our specific aircraft. But I know that everything that we see in the news, we're either hearing the same as everybody else, unless we get some kind of intelligence briefing or something like that. But this morning we got a notice that I think all the 911 stuff went down or something like that in 4 different states. And so of course in the government person's mind is like, is this China? Is this whoever, right? Because that's the first thing that we think of when we think of our intelligence side of stuff. But no, I wouldn't know that. If I was in my last position where I was working at Strategic Command, I actually got to be down there when they had like the big red button you push to send all the fighters and bombers out there. So that was really cool. But other than that, I really don't want to know, to be honest. Any other questions on this? And then our countries are very quiet too about what they share with us as well. So if they got something going on, and we've got to really be cautious of our different countries interacting with each other, because this country may not like this country, so we don't get them in the same room, and it's just very logistical nightmare sometimes. But it is very fun because I don't go a day without learning something, so that's why I like it. So that's my plane. That's the KC-135. That means no one kicks ass without tanker gas. And no one. So that's kind of our motto. That's what we live by. And then I always typically I put this for like some of the high school students I talk to, but that's an F-117 engine that goes on the C-17. Does anybody know how an engine works? Because everybody laughs at this. Suck, squeeze, bang, blow. So that's about how an engine works. That's all you need to know. But these are some of the systems that I used to work on whenever in my Air Force career. Really got to see my time in Colorado about actually dealing with a warfighter. making connections and talking to the warfighter over in the desert during Operation Iraqi Freedom, Enduring Freedom, and stuff like that. So there's so many different opportunities in the government where you can be touching different areas and making an impact to the warfighter. So, all right, so get to the meat of this. I went out to a bunch of other senior leaders in inside and outside my organization, and I'm like, hey, when I talk to Seminole State, I want to talk about, you know, what everybody's looking for now in today's world of hiring new employees off the street. And when I think of new employees off the street, it's not just people who were graduating college in your traditional student setting. So it's, you know, not all 22-year-olds that are graduating. I've hired people that have been in the workforce for multiple years, 20 plus years, and they decided they wanted to change. And so I've hired people who are 50 plus years old that came into the government. So when I talk about internships or I talk about interns, I mean that holistically, because an intern doesn't just mean somebody who's young in our mind. So when I say this is what we're looking for in a new employee, that means everybody. So one of the biggest things that we utilize in the government, some of our systems are very old, in DOS systems even, if anybody knows what that is, all the way to new AI technologies. But Microsoft Office is a huge one that we use because we're using Excel for data mining, Microsoft Word, I'm sure you write papers. We use Word all the time for writing documents, for contracts, to make contracts with like our large vendors like Boeing and Pratt & Whitney and stuff like that. So writing is very important to us, and effective writing is important to us. So has anybody, you know, how you make contracts in the private sector, where you do a proposal and somebody writes their requirements and they write to those things, that's similar to the government. So those documents that we have to write, they're seen by multiple people, lawyers and everybody, before they get posted for the public to see. So we don't want to look like idiots. We want to be able to write well and those documents to look really professional. So being able to write is very important in using these Microsoft systems. Data analytics. I know not a lot of people are numbers people, but we use a lot of metrics to make sure that, like if a part needs to be repaired and how often, or if an aircraft needs to come in for maintenance and how often and why. So those are kind of the data stuff that we look for in a person, and there's very specific fields for data analytics. So not everybody, like I said, is going to be in that desired field and want to do math type stuff. But if you are a math person, I highly encourage like an operations research job series or job career field if you do like the data mining. And I know UCO has a data mining or data analysis degree that they've just incorporated in their master's program. So if you like that, I highly recommend UCO. I work with them all the time, hiring people into the government. So if you are more of like a strategic thinker, big picture, and you like how projects are laid out, if you like if you have a garden you want to work on, and in your head you're thinking about, okay, how much time is it going to take? How much money is it going to take? What do I need to buy? What seeds do I need to buy? How much water is it going to take? And you plan all that kind of stuff out in your head, you might want to be a program manager or a project manager. And so going and get your project PMP, we call it, project manager professional certification. That is something outside of a degree, so you would have to get that on your own. I don't know, I think maybe like OU or OSU might offer those as a external certification, so that's something you might want to look at. So one of the things we're looking at is, of course, AI and digital transformation. So in the government, you know, we're always behind, right? The government is very slow to change, and that's just the fact of life. And it's hard for me, who is a very analytical person, to accept that. So there are some positions where they have paper that they were printing for multiple files every day. I mean, killing millions of trees. So the goal is to get that to be digitized. So that's something that all levels of senior leadership are looking at. So if you can learn about data management, configuration management, digital transformation efforts, that's very important to us. And then diving into policy and procedure. So the government, just like many organizations, are driven by policy and procedure, and that's really to protect ourselves and protect the people and to keep people safe for us. But there's always that waiver, right? we do it this way, but we're gonna waive it this time. But if you can find a way to utilize policy and procedures to help you or to get out of something so that it doesn't restrict you from bureaucracy and red tape, then utilize it. So digging into information is what we like to see. So these are just some technical skills, and they're kind of boring, I apologize. These aren't the fun skills to kind of learn. So if you're not nerdy like me, just skip this. So these are some of the intrinsic and soft skills advice that we look for, and this is more important to me than the technical skills, because you can teach the technical stuff and you can teach the day-to-day stuff, but if you don't have these intrinsic personal skills, it's going to be very hard to fit into the multiple organizations that we have at Tinker. So attitude over aptitude, like I said, you can always be taught something, but you got to have the willingness to want to learn and want to take on challenges and want to just grab things and run with them. And so that's very important. We always say lean forward. I know there's a book called Lean In. Similar methodology is just taking that extra step and taking action on things before you're even asked. Communication, obviously it's very important to communicate, but I'm noticing, especially with the little kids, how hard it is for them to communicate with even kids their own age or adults. I was at a scholarship thing yesterday, and this girl was like 10 years old, and she was terrified to even say hi to me. And so there's a lot of things that I try to teach parents to do with their kids early on to get them out there and talking to people, like ordering at the restaurant, not ordering for them. And if they have a fundraiser, the parent's not posting it on Facebook or social media, but that kid is actually calling those people to ask for money or to sell that candy bar or something like that. So I think we've gotten away from teaching people that kind of stuff, and it's been very detrimental to people coming into the government. And it's not just for younger kids too. I have a friend who lives next door to a couple who are in their late 20s, and they had an incident at their house, and they both were terrified to call 911 because they didn't want to talk to somebody on the phone. And it's pretty scary that they had some issue at their house and somebody trying to break in, and they were arguing about who was going to call 911. So communication is just very important. So whenever we start, somebody comes into the government brand new, they're always assigned a trainer. And that trainer is going to be there to ask questions to, but getting to know everybody in the organization and your peers and who you can reach out to for answers is also important outside just that small network of people. So talking to your supervisor is very important. A lot of people don't want to hear the bad about what they do in their job, but it's really important to understand of ways that you can actually be successful, and there's things that you may not realize that you're doing that other people are seeing. And so don't be afraid to ask the questions about, okay, you know, I got a good appraisal or I got a good performance review, but why didn't I get a better one? And so I know some of you are already in the workforce and you might get these things on a day-to-day basis or yearly basis or whatever, but always ask for that continuous feedback so that you can just grow in general. I mean, nobody wants to hear it, but it only benefits you. Actually today I went, had interview feedback for a position that I applied for at Strategic Command. It was a very new career field for me, and I didn't get the job, and I asked for feedback. And one of the things that they said was, you know your job, right? You can talk about your job, but you didn't, the people on the other end of the line doesn't know your job like you do. So they really wanted me to break it down, my day-to-day stuff. And I was thinking, oh yeah, these people don't know what I do on a daily basis. So, because they work in another area. And so nobody wants to get that feedback, but now I know how to change my approach next time if I go for a similar position.
So can I ask you though, when you got the feedback,
Mm-hmm.
because it's critical feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say critical, I mean, it can seem negative,
Mm-hmm.
but critical actually means this is critical in a sense of important
Mm-hmm.
feedback,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So most people take criticism, or a lot of people take criticism harshly, or sometimes it's hurtful, or takes it personally.
Mm-hmm.
How did you experience that internally, and how did you respond?
So I'm harder on myself than other people perceive me. I've always been like a perfectionist, and I always want to do things the correct way. And over time, obviously, I've learned that nothing can be perfect. But when I take that feedback, I have to first internalize it and be like, crap, man, I suck, or whatever. But then I think, outside looking in, and I play my own devil's advocate, and I say, oh, okay, they said I did really good here, but because they don't understand exactly what I do, because they don't do my job, I just need to make a decision to kind of let my ego go a little bit, and adjust to them, because sometimes we want people to adjust to us because we know so much about what we do, but we have to realize that not everybody thinks like us or has the same experience as us, and we have to sometimes be vulnerable and just to adjust to how others are perceiving or listening to us. So I took it in, and I'm very hard on myself for a little bit, but then I make myself play devil's advocate and look at things step by step to make sure that I'm not overthinking it. Or I also get feedback from other people. Hey,
Yes.
This is what they said, and they'll be like, oh yeah, sometimes you get into the weeds, right? Because I'm very analytical, and so I want to talk about a whole range of things, but the job I applied for is more of that project manager role, and so it's more high level, and for me to make that adjustment to think like that, it's going to be very hard because I'm very analytical. So I have to now think about, okay, if I were to do this interview again, this is how I'm going to answer it next time, to be more big picture thinking. Because in my role, I am strategic, but I'm also in the weeds. So for other different roles and stuff, I have to, again, adjust for what they're looking for in that position. So, and I've felt so many times, interviewing or, not getting my resume referred or something like that because of one little thing I missed. And because I'm a perfectionist, I'm really hard on myself, but then I'm like, okay, I survived, like, time to go on to the next thing. And I'm happy, right? My job, I love my job. I have a great team. So if I don't get that job, it doesn't hurt me at all because I make good money. I have a great team. I get to work from home like 3 days of the week. I travel. I just got back from Chicago. I'm about to go somewhere else next week. I don't have it bad at all. So that's how I think about it is, if I don't get that job, I'm doing just fine. I'll just try for the next one. So, like I talked about in the very first one, kind of be curious ask a lot of questions, and it's okay to ask a lot of questions. But one of the things that people get frustrated with is if you ask a lot of questions and you don't write those notes down and you come back and ask the same dang question, we're gonna get frustrated because you didn't take the initiative to take notes, or you didn't take the initiative to ask questions. And then me as a supervisor, I'm very busy. And so when I've already explained it once or even twice, and you come back to me and I'm like, if you don't write notes this time, I ain't telling you again. So you better go ask somebody else. So be curious and ask questions. And kind of like responsible failure, I get my ass chewed all the time because what we do is very important and we have to make sure people are staying safe. So if something happens and my team didn't take care of it and I get asked about a question, I just take it and move on. I'm not, we're in an environment where safety comes first and keeping people safe comes first. And so I just think, okay, well, I took my beating and I'm just gonna go on to the next one. So everybody deals with it in their job. Everybody has a supervisor. Nobody doesn't have a supervisor. And somebody asked me like, well, Biden, he's the top. And I'm like, no, his constituents are his supervisors, right? And the news, the media, those are his supervisors. They're the ones that are questioning him and everything on a daily basis. So, like I said, there is a bunch of bureaucracy and red tape in the government, and you have to be okay with that, and you got to figure out ways to get around it. And so it's really important to, again, have the drive and motivation to lean forward. One of my biggest pet peeves is when one of my employees comes to me with a problem and they're like, Katie, this is waste of time and waste of resources. And I'm like, okay, well, what are you gonna do? What do we do to fix it? Well, I don't know. Well, don't come to me with a problem because I think it's working fine. But if you don't think it's working fine, then you need to tell me what kind of solutions there are that may make something better. Because there's been times where I think something's doing okay, and my team's like, hey, this is adding like 3 steps to our process. Like, okay, well, how are you gonna fix it? Okay, well, we're gonna work with this person, and we're gonna eliminate the need to do this. And I'm like, awesome, do it. I don't care. I mean, it affects their day-to-day work. It doesn't affect me, it affects them. So if they have something that they wanna make better, go make it. Go make the change, because if it helps you do your job, that's what's the most important. For me, like, if you're happier in your job because you are able to make a change, that's what's important to me. So don't gripe about something and then not have a problem or a solution for that problem. That's one of our biggest pet peeves. Like I said, always keep learning. I learn every day in my job, whether it's about something in one of our countries, about cultures and different things, or whether it's about a process or a procedure. So you never not learn in the government because it's so big. There's just not an excuse to not learn. And if you aren't learning, then it's time to move to do something else. One of my favorite senior leaders, he's a mentor to me, his last comment is, take critical thinking classes and teamwork classes. If you've ever heard of like the True Colors, like the personality stuff, I had my whole team do that. We got to learn about each other's personalities, and now I know how to better work with somebody that's new to my team. If somebody is more organized and they like things in a process and order, then I know what kind of workload to give them. If somebody is a more touchy-feely person and they like being around people, then I might put them more dealing with our countries one-on-one. So learning about different personalities, critical thinking, and working with teams is important. Any questions on this? No. And again, this is coming from a lot of people I work with. I had about 50 people that I asked these questions to about what we're looking for in the government. And I'm sure it probably applies to education and probably the private sector as well. But 50 people, and almost every single one responded, and most of them had these same answers. That's why it's really important, because I would have 50 answers if it wasn't a multitude of people, but these very similar answers, and that was kind of what I really did, copy and pasted what their responses were.
And I would say that by doing this, that's positive networking in itself.
Yeah.
By showing, number one, I'm going to speak to students, and number two, I'm interested in learning from you as senior leaders or whoever else you're talking to at Tinker. I'm interested in learning from you because I don't know everything. So that's networking in itself.
Yeah, I have a lot of, there's really a difference between mentoring and being a coach, right? Mentoring is, I know everything about that person's family, what their kids' names are, what kind of dogs they've got. But career coach is really focusing on getting through the day-to-day and how to get that person promoted or like a different opportunity for them. So if you are looking for somebody, for like a mentor perspective, know the difference is that a mentor is a real true relationship. You go to dinner together, like I said, you know each other's families, and it's a bond that you create for a really long time. I'm in the 2B Leaders. I'm a mentor for 2B Leaders for UCO. It's their business program that they have out there, and I've mentored 3 people in the last few years. And one, she's getting her doctorate in University of Hawaii right now. We text each other all the time. She's from North Africa, so she's a student, international student. And so I've met her family. I know everything about her siblings, and I know everything about her personally. I have another one. Her name is Kaylee, and she's actually did work for Amazon. I know about her boyfriend. I know about her family problems. I know everything about her. So I've created those relationships with them that continue today. But I also am a career coach or a coach to employees at Tinker. I don't know anything about their life. I just know what they do at Tinker, and I'm trying to help them grow. I don't necessarily need to know about their family. I just need to tell them what kind of path that they need to be on in order to get out of being a mechanic and be in my job one day. Or like what kind of school they might want to go to, because I work with a lot of schools across Oklahoma and outside of Oklahoma, and so I just kind of try to figure out which one might be the best school for them or best degree program for them. So that's kind of the difference there between those two things. So make sure you know what you're looking for if you're looking for help from somebody. So these are some of the things that are in your control. The last one was outside of your control, or things that we're looking for intrinsically. So how you treat others, your work ethic, how you network and connect with others, what you do for others. One of my biggest thing is giving back, because I feel very blessed to be getting to do what I do every day, and where I started from and my upbringing that I had. Did not have a great childhood, and I worked through that and feel like I did pretty well for myself. So I always feel like no matter what situation you have in your childhood and your upbringing, you can always kind of just pull up your bootstraps and make something of yourself. And I always go off of what my high school English teacher said is excuses do not free you from responsibility. And I've always kind of lived by that. Just because these things happen to you, you have to kind of overcome, get the help you need, and then persevere and move on. And so that's something that I live to the core today. So because I had the people and the help get me to where I am, I always try to give back in different ways to the community or to others, to make sure that I pay it forward, I guess. How you communicate with others, your drive to learn, let's see here, how you respond to others, your education and career. So, getting your degree here, and whatever you do after this, your decision, right? And what you want to do as far as going and getting a 4-year degree, or maybe going to vocational school after this. one of the things that is very important to me is following up and closing a loop, and that kind of works in with a thank you, a simple thank you, because we are very busy in our day-to-day lives. So, you know, if you ask your professor for something, or if you ask your counselor for something and they send it to you, just tell them thanks. It's very important to just kind of close the loop and say thank you, I appreciate you helping me out, because people just aren't thanked anymore. People just don't appreciate what others are doing for them sometimes, and just a simple thank you and how you treat others goes a long way. And it could be as simple as a handwritten card. One of the things I do with my employees is I do handwritten cards and I put on their desk, or I write cash awards for them, or I, you know, write some kind of award for them to let them know that I appreciate them. Because sometimes for me, it's hard to think about thank you, like verbally. And so I either do it sometimes in writing, or I do it by a gift or something. So that's my way of doing it. And that's something I have to work on, is just saying, thank you, Jana, for letting me come today. And then having boundaries. There's a lot of people who have boundary issues, and knowing what your boundaries are, and recognizing those boundaries in others. So I know, like, when I'm in my office, I come in, I get to work at 6:30 in the morning when we come in, because I want to beat all the mechanics out that parking lot. That's a massive debacle to get out of at Tinker. So I get there between 6 and 6:30. And so I come to my door, and I know the first thing that happens when I open my door is got one of my employees coming over to me and talking. I haven't had my coffee or anything yet. So I just have to tell them, give me 30 minutes, you know, let me get settled in, let me just wake up, because I just drove an hour from Seminole almost to Tinker. So just let me get a little settled, and you can come talk to me then. Or, you know, just a simple knock on the door, you know, are you available? One of my biggest pet peeves on this is, how many of y'all use Microsoft Teams? Y'all use Teams and Zoom and all that stuff. I love it, I hate it, because I might be working on something important, and then somebody will just call me without even going, hey, Katie, are you available for a second? They'll just call me. And if I'm on my laptop, I got to close out like 10 screens to get to that phone call answering, and I missed their phone call. And it's just, have the courtesy to say, hey, do you have 5 minutes where we can talk real quick before I call you on Teams or something like that. So just common courtesy, those kind of things that that we appreciate as supervisors and stuff like that, not just coming in, as well as professors just walking in and just sitting down and saying, hey, I have this problem. Look at their calendar if you have access, look at their schedule, see if they're able to talk to you. And then same goes for your own boundaries, and not having others take advantage of you being nice, or taking advantage of you because you want to help or something like that. So creating your own boundaries within yourselves. So if you are overworked, or if you have too much on your plate, talk about that with professors or your employers or something, so that you don't get overwhelmed with your day-to-day life, because everybody's balancing personal life and school life and work life and everything else. So being honest with others and honest with yourself, I feel like one of the hardest things to do as a supervisor or as a professor is to give honest feedback about something. I had one of my students last semester who, she was hanging out with this group of guys, and she felt like she needed to be part of the guy group, but she was hurting herself because they would like always allow her, or they would always talk over her when she would talk. And so it would be very frustrating for me. And so, and she was very frustrated, and I said, just tell them, quit talking over me. I have things that are important to say. And so trying to get her to understand that, you know, to be honest with how she feels and how they were treating her, she needed to stand up for herself. And I feel like honesty and standing up for yourself go hand in hand, because if you're honest, then people actually know what's going on and they aren't left in the dark. And one of the things that I will say is if you have a problem with something, or you have an issue with a teacher, or you have an issue with a boss or something, don't let it linger, because then it causes more problems down the road. Address it right now, and that's the best way to handle that. And it's conflict resolution that is at its finest, is handling something today instead of dealing with it tomorrow, because it's only going to be worse 3-4 days down the road, or even like 2 months down the road. So if I have an issue with one of my employees, I'm like, hey, cut it out. Like, don't be a dumbass. So, just do what you're supposed to do. And they're like, okay, sorry, you know, and we get back to work. Because a lot of my employees, they were a bunch of mechanics, and so we call them outside cats trying to be inside cats. So, so I've always gotta be like, come on, guys, you're not out there in the shop anymore. You're in a business setting now. So, even though I cuss like a sailor, but we still have to keep each other in check. And then setting your teacher, professor, whoever up for success. So, never throw somebody under the bus, right? You don't want to throw somebody under the bus. You work through the issue. And don't let that supervisor or teacher fail. You know, she talked about the surveys coming up, right? If you had something bad to say about the professor, I wish you would say it to the professor. And maybe there was a misunderstanding, or there was some kind of communication issue or something there that could be worked out before you did that survey. Because I know I'm in education too, so those surveys affect how, like, some of those professors get, you know, on for the next year, get raises and stuff like that. So I always say, if you have feedback to give to whoever, try to do it in person, and have the courtesy to give them an opportunity to have that conversation with you. So things are out of your control, what others think of you, what's happened in the past, the future, what people post online, that's a big one, right? The news, the media outlets that everybody listens to, everybody's got their personal favorite, and people don't like this area or this news outlet, but you can't control these things. So for me, I don't even watch the news because I never know what's going to happen and what they're telling me. And then group projects, everybody hates them. I do not do them because I didn't like them whenever I was a student, because you're depending on somebody else to do what they're supposed to do when you have no control of them doing what they're supposed to do, and you end up doing all the work, and then you're stressed out because you do everything. So group projects outside your control, I advocate for not doing them. So I want somebody to do something with me real quick. Who wants to be my guinea pig? One person. Anybody?
Squeak.
No.
Come on now.
One person.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Which one?
we had to, oh.
What's your most recent problem? You can stay right there. What's your most recent problem?
Most recent problem?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I guess maintaining efficiency between multiple facets of my life.
Like personal and
Yeah, personal
school?
work, school.
Okay. So, let's see here. How did you see the challenge?
Do I see the challenge? I'm pretty optimistic about it. It's just about finding like optimization between them and spacing the time and stuff of that nature. 'Cause that's the biggest problem is the time frames between all of them.
Mm-hmm. How many hours do you take?
This semester,
Mhm.
I think 12 hours.
You work, or you got things outside of school and stuff too?
Yeah, I have a job.
All right. So, did you have to collaborate with anyone to help solve your problem? Do you collaborate? Work with anybody? Ask
Other
for
than
advice?
just, like other employees and stuff that at my job, and just because we do have a team effort, it takes all of us to do it. Like I work in the medical field, so
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So, how did you react? I mean, how do you react to this? I mean, are you you try to stay positive, or are you stuck in this like hole, you're like never gonna get out?
I personally try to stay positive. I mean, right now I am kind of in a little bit of a hole, but like, I just work every single day. I think my personal motto is try to improve 1% every single day, even if it's a marginal amount.
Yeah,
Like, if you keep taking steps forward, eventually you'll get somewhere.
yeah, that's awesome. I like you.
We
Are you solving the problem? You feel like you're solving the problem?
Yeah, it's about, right now it's more or less trial error. It's like, let's see how this works, because I don't have a full solid system because of the way that the new Dynamics was. In my previous job, I did. And that's because I worked there for quite a while and I was super familiar, but now I have a whole new set of skills and tasks that I'm set up with now.
Okay.
And I have to kind of reorient.
Organized, right? You learn anything from this? Balancing your work and
Yeah,
school life?
yeah.
What'd you learn?
Basically, the maintenance of stress is one of the biggest ones, because there is like a mountain load of like new responsibility that's on me, and people's lives weigh very heavily on my decisions. So I have to make sure that that doesn't basically destroy me or take me down or make me lose motivation.
Do you yoga, meditate?
I do meditate on the occasion.
Yeah.
I do like to read and stuff of that nature, and one of the things I do is like also stress relief is make music and stuff.
Oh, cool. I don't know if anybody has an Apple Watch. I didn't wear mine today, but I have that breathe thing on there that I use. And you're supposed to breathe for like a minute. I use that a lot because I'm one of those people who can't go to sleep at night because my mind is going 100 miles an hour. So I try to use that. It's a really good tool if anybody's used it before. What are your failures?
My failures, right now, currently, like I said, like getting the efficiency between the two things, because right now, like, I work night, so trying to find a good system where I can actually fall asleep and then like be here so that nature well rested is currently one of the things that I'm still struggling with, that I'm kind of trying to work out.
Okay. Let's see here. And you're resilient, right? Because you're
Yeah.
1%. So, these are the things that I talk to my employees about all the time. And if you don't have somebody to talk to you about these things, you need to find somebody to talk about these things. Any issues or anything like that, you need to be that person or to somebody else, or you need to go to somebody who is willing and ready to listen to you. I know somebody who's pretty good at listening. And it's very important because we're all just trying to make it through every day, right? And everybody on the outside and social media acts like everything's so great and perfect, but you know, everybody has something going on in their life that you don't know about. And so everybody says like, you know, you're here and somebody's here because you just don't know what people are going through. So when I say that, did you survive? Did you live, right? This is my favorite thing, you know, from The Hangover. But did you die, right? You're still here and you're still going at it. And that's what I tell everybody whenever I'm supervising them is you're still here, right? And you're still working through these things. So last thing I want to kind of talk about, I've kind of gone over a little bit probably, what to do today in your daily life. Wave the flag. That is my biggest thing I always say is if you're working right now or if you're you know, talking to your professor like, hey, I did this really cool assignment or I did this really cool thing at work today and I want you to know about it because, you know, I'm very proud of what I did. I'm very proud of my accomplishment. And don't be afraid to talk about your accomplishments because as supervisors, I'm so focused on what I'm doing. I need them to tell me sometimes because I don't know what everybody does all day long. So I need them to tell me like, hey, I accomplished this today. So they send me like a weekly report of things that they work on and outcomes and things that they feel like were successes so that I can use that to give them credit for their performance evaluations or to give them an award like I was talking about. So recording your accomplishments, having those conversations about your expectations, offering to lead things, projects, group projects, tasks, stuff like that. So like I said, give back to others. So if you know something, help others learn too. So train and develop others. Let's see, you create continuity. So you're never going to always just be in that same position in your job. Creating continuity books and sharing that knowledge with others is very important. Some people hold on to knowledge thinking that if I share my knowledge, then my job might be in jeopardy. But it's creating continuity for people behind you that come along as you start growing and moving on. Making connections. LinkedIn is a really great tool. I don't know how many of y'all are on LinkedIn. 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah. So 6. So it's a great tool. It's been a great tool for me. I have a lot of connections of people I've met in different bases and different organizations and agencies, as well as I follow different companies that we work with, as well as different like organizations that we support. So like last week, I was at the Maintenance, Repair, and Overhaul Symposium in Chicago. Lots of government agencies and contractors there, and I met different people and made connections on LinkedIn so that we can talk about how to improve things. So I highly recommend getting on LinkedIn. You can follow people that you admire and that people that you look up to, and you can learn from them on there. Getting involved in different organizations on campus or outside campus, different nonprofits, give back to your community in some way, and you can use that time in different organizations in your nonprofits on your resume. Like, I want to see that people are able to do their job and also give back to their community or do things outside of school or work. And I think I told this last time I talked about resumes and stuff was, I don't care about the people who have a 4.0 GPA. I don't. I want to know who's able to manage going to school, working, doing 12 hours or so many hours a semester, also having a full-time job, also in baseball or softball or band or whatever, and able to manage multiple things at a time, because there's people with 4.0s who don't know anything. And I feel like people are able to manage and balance things better. That's the kind of person I'm looking for. So, and then taking any kind of leadership opportunities that you can, so that you can learn from others and you can learn about yourself and your failures and that you survived those things, and then you take what you learned and you apply it to your next job, or you apply it to your next class or your next group project. So, this is LinkedIn. If you haven't gone on there, you create out a profile, fill out everything. So education, if you're graduating next month, congratulations, put you're graduated. If you're already been accepted to your next school, start that you're starting your next school and what school you're going to, any kind of hobbies, activities, clubs, organizations, put all that out there. And make sure that your profile is complete. Like I said, look for people who influence you and that you admire, organizations that interest you, and just click add connection. They always say don't add connections on LinkedIn if you don't know them, but I always feel like as long as you're not trying to sell something to somebody, that's my biggest thing, is you're not trying to sell something to something and you want to make an actual connection with somebody on LinkedIn, that's what it's for, is networking.
How important is it to be on LinkedIn to make professional connection or to be found?
So I know a lot of companies utilize LinkedIn and social media to do their research on people. Somebody don't want to hire somebody that's going out there and making disparaging comments and stuff like that, and putting stuff on LinkedIn and sharing things that are important to you is something that they look at as far as a balance in their life, right? So they want to know that they're not just interested in just doing, like, getting a promotion, but they're also interested in how to make the world better and stuff. So I highly encourage it. Anybody who wants to stay, I can show you my LinkedIn profile, and I have it completely filled out. And I have different articles I've written from my nonprofit side that I publish out there. My my dissertation's out there, that kind of stuff. So as much information as possible you want to put out there so that people can find you easier. And the more information you put out there, the more opportunities for jobs that pop up. Like, oh, we think this job might be right for you based off of what you put in your profile. And so I know that a lot of companies use LinkedIn to hire people, and they base it off of your LinkedIn profile as your resume. So think of that as well. Not just a way to make connections, but they're looking at that as your resume instead of you submitting one. So, any questions?
Did you guys know that about LinkedIn? That it's actually,
Can I add something?
Mhm.
Sorry to interrupt, but a lot of colleges and universities too are also using an app called Handshake that is geared towards students, and it's basically exactly the same as LinkedIn, but the pool of candidates are students. So companies are coming to that site looking for people who are straight out of school, who are maybe still in school, and we're trying to get that for Seminole, but if you're transferring to another college or university, you might look for that there too, because it functions in the same way as
Yeah.
LinkedIn. But it takes the people out of the pool that have maybe been working in that area for 30 years that you just can't compete with. So keep your eyes open. I'm trying to get it for Seminole right now.
And I use Handshake whenever I was doing the hiring and stuff. And I actually hired a few people from Handshake because their resumes are uploaded in there, and I could review their resumes, and mostly from UCO because they have an operations and supply chain management degree, and we're big in supply chain and logistics at Tinker. So I've hired a lot of people from that degree program. I've hired a lot of people through Handshake from OU's aviation, and they also have a supply chain management degree program. ECU has a really great business program. I've hired from there from Handshake, and I've also hired from LinkedIn. And so 2 tools that you can utilize. And I don't know where anybody's going after this, if you plan on going to a 4-year or not, but if you have any questions about different schools that I interact with and the pros and cons of different ones, just ask me. She can give you my email, and then you'll have my LinkedIn on the front there. Message me on there if you want, add me, whatever. And then the last thing I always say is somebody who's done something for you or you appreciate about them and they're on LinkedIn, write a recommendation for them. That is also helpful. It's kind of like a survey for some employers who are going out there and looking at, I wonder how well this person works with others. Oh, well, somebody made a recommendation for them and they wrote how well they worked in groups or how well that they led a project or something like that. It could be as little as being just an employee, or it could be as a student as well. So, all right, thank you.
yeah.
We'll bring it up.
You guys, like she said, she's willing to stay here and let you look at her LinkedIn and answer questions about it. So if you want to do that, I would recommend doing that.
She's
She
amazing.
has lots of info.